I'd like to say hello and welcome to our webinar on internet safety. Tonight we have representation from the Guilford Police Department, Library, Youth and Family Services, and our schools to present a whole bunch of information and begin a conversation on internet safety for elementary students. We will be taking questions and attempting to answer as many as we can. We will be using the Q&A feature in the Zoom app. You can find that at the bottom of your screen in the controls. We will be queuing all those questions and answering them after the presentation tonight. Tonight's webinar will be recorded and made available online, as well as links to additional resources that are mentioned in tonight's presentation. We believe it takes a strong partnership between school, home, and community for all learning, and we'll highlight why it's also important to have it here with internet safety and digital citizenship as well. My name is Kevin Mitchell, and I am the Technology Director for Guilford Public Schools, and I'm going to invite my colleagues to introduce themselves at this time.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bill Grimm. I'm the principal at A.W. Cox Elementary School here in Guilford.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Martone. I'm the School Resource Officer for the Guilford Police Department.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carolyn Regan. I'm the Program Director at Guilford Youth and Family Services.
Hi, my name is Angelina Carnevali. I'm Head of Children's Services at the Guilford Free Library.
Sorry, I was muted. Hi, my name is Cheryl Monaco, and I am the Library Media Specialist at Calvin Lee Elementary School.
Hi, I'm Emily Bovair, Library Media Specialist at Melissa Jones Elementary School.
And hi, I'm Susie Perotti, Library Media Specialist at A.W. Cox Elementary School. We'll begin our webinar slideshow, and I will start with objectives for tonight. Again, we're in alliance with Guilford Public Schools, Guilford Police Department, Guilford Youth and Family Services, and Guilford Free Library. Thank you, everybody, for your time and energy, and thank you for attending tonight. Objectives of tonight's presentation are to review current social media, gaming, apps that elementary students are using, highlight features and facts of popular websites, apps, and games, review the Guilford Public Elementary Schools teaching and learning objectives, suggest practices and procedures for internet safety to encourage communication, balance, and safety in the home, provide troubleshooting and security features you can enable on your devices to promote transparency, responsible use, and safety, and to provide resources for continuing education to support critical conversations and actions surrounding internet safety. Again, as Kevin Mitchell stated, there will be a question and answer period following our presentation. Questions can be listed in the Zoom Q&A feature and will be organized by our moderators. And the webinar will be recorded and provided to each registrant at the end of tonight. So thank you for being here. Anthony Martone, I'd like to toss it off to you.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Officer Martone. I go by Anthony. I've been working with the elementary schools and Baldwin Middle School to create a presentation I think is beneficial to them. We want to give these kids our word is toolkit. So a lot of what we're going to be going over are some of the tools that we've given them, as well as some information I think you guys might find useful. So if we go to the first slide. We went with an acronym. Actually, Susie found this one, and it's just a quick breakdown for them of how they can use the internet safely. If we actually go to the next slide, and this one, hopefully it works out the way it's supposed to there, but Kev, the next slide. Thanks. You're just gonna have to keep clicking. It is the way it is, but so we want to remind all the kids to be safe. Okay, so don't share your information with others. That's, first and foremost. And we don't ever want to meet anyone that we're talking to online unless our parents know who that, our guardians know who that person is. Don't accept suspicious links. And one of the ways I like to go about going over this acronym is by sharing personal stories. And one of the stories I always share is I opened ransomware at the police department in an email. So I like to, make it humorous for these kids, and I do it at my own expense. And then we go into reliable, and this is a big one. And, you know, I think the the media specialists are doing a great job of helping these kids find good sources for information, as well as, you know, when to, you know, raise a red flag. So we'll see that in the next slide. But, you know, we always want to tell somebody when something seems suspicious or someone's not being treated right. And when we're at school, we always tell them, you know, start with a teacher, start with a parent. That's why I'm in the school. You can come and tell me. But there's a number of resources we go over for the children so that they can make good decisions and, you know, use the internet wisely. All right, and then this is just to reiterate the reliable source. The media specialist did an awesome job. They always tell the kids use .gov, .org, and then if it has the lock feature in the top there, that's a safe source. So the kids always look for that, and I wish I knew that growing up, but these kids have it down pat, so that's a good one for them. We can go to the next one. All right, so moving on to a lot of what I deal with, and that is social media. So one of the common themes I see in all the schools is the kids want to, you know, have, whether it's an Instagram, a Snapchat, or a TikTok, they want to try to get as many followers as they can. They see people like Kylie Jenner here. She makes $1 million per Instagram post. And that's a problem because the expectations for these kids are set so high. You know, these people don't have to work that hard, and, you know, I don't know what their educational background was, but they make a lot of money per post. So I need to get a lot of followers. And what we tell these kids is these followers are really strangers. If you don't know who they are, they're strangers. We can move on to the next one. All right, another big theme here. I'm sure a lot of your kids play video games. And one of the trends, and I don't know if you know about streaming, but you could actually play video games and stream your video game content to the rest of the world. And some of these guys make millions of dollars a year doing that. And I can't tell you how many boys and girls, you know, parents call me and they say, you know, my kid won't put the video game down. Well, I would check and see if they have something called Twitch or some of the other streaming apps and whatnot you can get on the Xbox, the PlayStation. It's a source of income for a lot of people, but again, expectation versus reality. These kids all think they're going to be the next Nick Merckx, who's the biggest streamer on the rise, and you know that's not reality. I thought I was going to the NHL in 3rd grade, but I couldn't make the A team, so I didn't really have a shot. I still found time to do my homework, and that's what these kids need to do. And then if we move on to the next one, just a popular celebrity on social media. I don't know if anyone knows Charli D'Amelio, but she's actually from Norwalk, huge on TikTok. A lot of kids follow her. She actually had the Charli cold brew, which I don't know if anyone tried it. I thought it was pretty good. It was like brown sugar and oat milk. And you know, coincidentally, they took it off the signs this past weekend. So now you guys are going to go to Dunkin' Donuts and be like, oh, Officer Martone's a liar. That never happened. No, I promise you, she was on there for like 3 months. But a lot of the kids now, she's a local celebrity. So these kids now see her and, oh, she's from Norwalk. She's making it. Why can't I make it? Again, we're pressing upon the point that you need to do school first. You can have all this other extracurricular stuff, but make sure the work's getting done. You can't spend 5 hours a day on your social media content. It doesn't work out that well. All right, so just we go through some of the big ones. This is, if you see this on your kid's phone, this is TikTok. We could go to the next slide. All right, huge with the Baldwin all and on up. Even some of the elementary kids. There was even a girl with a TikTok sweatshirt. But the kids love this. A lot of dancing features, but random videos are popping up. It's kind of difficult to know who your kids are following on this, and anyone's videos can come through. So if we move on to the next one, and again, the average age with these is about 20 to 24. The next one, Snapchat, ton of issues with Snapchat. It is the bane of my existence. as a school resource officer. Kids send all kinds of things from, pictures and videos at parties to, stuff that's happening on the bus. And they think that these videos are disappearing. Well, as I tell these kids, that's not the case. Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, they all have to keep this information for about 90 days. I've done plenty of search warrants for Snapchat and the like. And I think these, kids are very surprised when they get caught committing a crime on one of those. Not that a lot of elementary kids are doing that, but just something for you guys to be aware of. All right. And this is the big thing we go over with them. These kids should be at least 13 to have this stuff. And if they don't, that's okay. But, just read the disclaimer with them, because these companies do not want to be liable for anything that happens on their app, especially if it's a young person under the age of 13. They're not going to turn around and help you if their account gets hacked or your credit card is lost or you're getting spam emails. They don't care about any of that stuff. They want no part of it. These kids, sign up for this stuff and don't realize the minimum age is 13. And that goes for every social media that's out there. And that's just TikTok's version of it. YouTube is the same thing. There's actually YouTube Kids, and you can be under the age of 13 to have that and download it. Some of the kids at the I think it was Calvin Leet had said that they have YouTube Kids, and that's fine. But the regular YouTube, you have to be 18 or have parent consent in order to be using it and accessing videos. All right, so right now, this is about a year old, but these kids are going to spend about 7 years of their life on the internet, which is crazy when you think about it. Now with COVID, I think more and more things are being added into our life by way of the internet. So it kind of goes without saying, this is a huge part of their life. It's going to be a huge part of your life too. So we really need to be in tune with what our kids are doing out there. All right, big thing for me. I can't tell you how many kids are losing scholarships, whether it's through athletics or academics, by posting something, liking something, sharing something. And it happens on Twitter, it happens on Facebook, it happens on Instagram, all of these other apps, it's the same thing. Even YouTube, if you make a YouTube comment, you can lose your job, you can lose a scholarship. These kids don't realize how vulnerable they are because the expectation is I could go home and tweet and say anything I want on the internet and I can't get in trouble for it. These are just a few examples of kids who recently lost scholarships, but I like to tell them, I know cops who lost their jobs. I know cops, people I went to college with, they couldn't get hired because during a background check, they looked into all the things they've posted on social media and they were found to be unfit. That goes for every profession. These kids need to know that. And once you put it on the internet, it is there forever. All right, so we could go through this pretty quickly, but this is true and false we did with the kids. I think some of them were surprised that things they say during video game time, they think they're talking to someone they'll never meet again, but it's really easy to record that stuff. So if you're gonna make fun of somebody or say something that's racist or use profanity, very easy to report another player, very easy to record it. People do get in trouble from time to time on that. So just something, if you're nearby while your kids playing video games, just kind of listen to what they're saying and get them to stop if they're using profanity. It can get them in trouble. Big one this year, and hopefully it's not a factor at all next year, is Google Classroom and Zoom bombing. We have made an arrest at the Guilford PD for Zoom bombing. That's when you send out a Zoom link and invite someone to join who's not in your class. We haven't had any issues with it as of late, but early on in the school year, we saw quite a few Zoom bombing. So we can actually go to the next slide. And this one is an arrestable offense. Connecticut team was arrested last year. And like I said, another officer in my department did a great follow-up case and made an arrest on a Zoom bombing. Not for a school case, but it does happen. So, we press upon the point, please don't share the link with anybody, but, if these kids are at home, we can't be there to tell them that all the time. So they can get in trouble for that too. All right, we went over some safe usernames and passwords for the kids. I think they all kind of had the gist of it, but just don't put personal information out there. So if you know your kid has a username or a video game name with personal information, go over, changing that. Don't put your birthday, don't put your house number, anything that you can be found on. If you could put that into Google and it can come back to you, you need to change it. Big one, $134 million lost in scams this year online. So I always give examples of how kids at the high school's accounts got hacked, and there was credit card links, in those accounts, and then they lost all that stuff because they didn't have a closed private profile. So people from other countries or what have you were able to get in, change the password, and these kids lost money. Sometimes it's their parents who lost money. Something to keep an eye on. Go over having a private account with your children. We can go to the next one. All right, if you guys have seen any of these, especially the one in the bottom right-hand corner there, it comes with a lot of headaches for the most part. Just today, I was dealing with a family who's, the father and the son got into a big argument, and it had to do with the Xbox getting taken away as a punishment for not doing schoolwork. And further along in the presentation, you're going to hear more about some ways to go about changing that in the household. Another part of the toolkit that is hopefully helpful to you. All right, Roblox, big one. All the kids seem to use this. It has a unique chat feature. Now, by the time I did my second presentation at the LEAD school, a lot of the kids were telling me they had heard about my presentation at A.W. Cox, and they did away with the chat feature. They only played with kids they knew, or they deleted the chat altogether. They didn't want to talk to strangers, so that was good. Again, with all these video games, they could be talking to someone who's much older than them. We go to the next one. All right, so Minecraft, biggest thing here, average age user is 24 years old. And it's a game a lot of kids play, and it's usually pretty innocent. Just, again, who are you talking to? Who are you playing with? If you don't know them, if they're not from your school, if they're not a cousin, a family member, someone in the neighborhood, might want to double check and see who your kids are playing with. We're good. Sorry. All right, this is another biggie, is Fortnite. Can't tell you how many underage kids are playing this game. It is violent. There's a ton of foul language used. Again, much older crowd playing this game, but a lot of younger kids think it's okay to play because all their favorite cartoon characters are characters that can be in the game. So it is rated T for teen. If you're going to let your kid play this game, that's all right, but just know who they're playing with, know who they're talking to. All right, a big one right now, predators. Online dating is blowing up. Not that the elementary kids are using that sort of thing, but it's tied into video games as well. Hey, I'm your age, or I live in the same town as you. Can we meet up? More and more, we're seeing kids getting lured because every aspect of these kids' life is online now. So big issue across the country. We could go ahead a couple. Obviously, catfish exist everywhere here in Connecticut, here in New Haven County. There's a lot of people out there that want to meet younger kids. If you guys haven't heard of the Manti Te'o scandal, look into it. It's fascinating. He was one of the best college football players in the last decade or so, and no one is ever going to remember him for anything other than getting caught in the most famous catfishing scandal of all time. So he's still in the NFL, but you know what? He made a big mistake online and dating someone he thought was a real person. So happens to everybody. No one is immune to it. All right, another big one here. We talked about ransom. So kids might meet people and they think they're friends, and then all of a sudden some part of their world is compromised, whether it's their account, pictures they sent, and then in return these people want thousands of dollars. And another big thing we already talked about is meeting these people. So that's one of the first things we talk about in the acronym. Don't ever meet anybody online that you don't know, especially for these elementary kids. It's just so in their faces, just meeting all these people online and all these different apps. So stay on top of it with them. We're good. I get this all the time. How do I block somebody? Every phone I've seen so far and every app has a way to block. If you're getting a strange request or your kid gets a strange request, delete the request. You can block the person. There's always a way to do it. I can't get case specific right now in the interest of time, but if you don't know how to do it, try to Google it and see if you could do it that way if it's a specific app. And if the problem continues, I always encourage people, you can change your username. It's not the best case scenario, but if it's continual, you need to do that. And if it gets any worse, try deactivating your account for a while. You could always delete your account. And if it gets really bad and people are finding other ways to message you, then it might be time to call us. Moving along, virtual private networks. If you guys haven't heard of these, there's tons of them out there. These are just a few that I was able to take a screenshot of a couple weeks ago, but there's always new ones. It's a way for these kids to, kind of bypass blocks that are out there in terms of if you have a safety set up on like the school network. Sometimes these kids have VPNs to get around the school networks to play video games on their Chromebooks or their phones. So they download a free VPN, but a lot of people use them for accessing public Wi-Fi like coffee shops, etc. And it makes your network private, so people can't see where you are. All right, I used to kind of sit back and watch this gentleman named Scottriscoll do this presentation. A lot of this information came from him, and I like to give him credit. He's a police officer for the Capitol Police, which means he protects the governor. And he went around the state and probably around New England doing internet safety. So some of his breakdowns we go over in class. Just, don't share your personal information, keep stuff private. Don't share photos for any reason, good, bad, indifferent. Please don't share your photos. We don't talk to strangers. Don't share your friends' passwords. Anyone else's information, don't give it out. And don't do anything online you wouldn't do in the real world. That is the biggest takeaway, I think, from all this. If you wouldn't make fun of somebody in the real world, why is it okay to do online? If you wouldn't share your friends' information in the real world, don't do it online. Don't share pictures in the real world. Don't do it online. It doesn't make it any better. It doesn't make it any safer. All right, and these are just some things you guys as parents can do to protect your children online. You guys are the owner of the device. So you guys are going to be responsible for what happens, but you guys need to have a say in that. Set some ground rules, okay? What are the expectations you want with these video games, these apps? We're going to talk about a family contract coming up, but I don't want to spoil it, but that's going to be a great option for you guys. If you have an open line of communication, I think that's a great thing to have. So don't just buy the game or the app for them. Know how it works, know where they're using it, when they're using it, who they're talking to. And, it's not an invasion of privacy. If these kids if it's normalized that they tell you who they're playing with or how the game works, that'll be the expectation moving forward. And, they won't get so mad if you guys walk into the room and they're playing the game. They won't minimize the screen. They'll keep it up and say, hey, I'm playing with my friend down the street. Oh, okay. Limit digital usage. Again, the case today, the kid said he played video games 5 hours a day. How is he getting any schoolwork done? I have no idea. But set some ground rules. No video games after dinner, no video games before dinner. Get your schoolwork done first. Whatever it may be, there's a ton of options out there you guys can come up with. Find something that works for you and your family. And if it's not working out, you're going to have to take it away. I mean, it's tough for these kids because it's a way of life for them. But you guys own the device. You guys are responsible for what happens. And then there's a number of parental control features. If you Google your device or so be it, there's always a way to set up parental control. And that should be in the next slide. All right, whether it's the video game, their phone, every one of these companies has a way to set up a parental control. Another one I like to talk about is Life 360. My next door neighbor's kids just got their driver's license and they were driving 85 miles an hour on the highway, and the phone can tell you how fast they're driving. So those kids are not going to be driving for a while. But there's a ton of features that app has. I don't know that app is free. A lot of parents do utilize it here in Guilford, so just something to look into as your kids get older. All right, and that is it for me. I think next is Carolyn Regan. Thank you.
So actually, I believe it's me. I'm Angelina from the Guilford Free Library. So I'm just going to start really quickly. So we are going to go into some of the things that Officer Martone talked about. Let's see. I think there's a slide missing. Where's the statistics slide? Aha, yes. Okay, so I'm just briefly going to share some statistics that might startle you. So 29% of children in grades 4 through 8, so that includes elementary school, admitted to using the internet in ways that their parents wouldn't approve. 40% of kids in grades 4 through 8 reported that they connected or chatted online with a stranger. And you can see the breakdown on here of how many of those 40% who talked to a stranger online, what they revealed to that stranger, whether it was a phone number, whether they spoke to them on the phone, whether they tried to meet with them, whether they texted them or sent them their address. So, this stuff is happening, and it's happening as young as elementary school. And that's just what we have documented that we know about. So, if it wasn't clear before through all of Officer Martone's, talks, these are national statistics, and I'm going to turn it over to our school media specialists who are going to, tell you how these mirror what's happening here in town.
Thank you, Angelina. Next slide. There's one before that, please, Kevin. So when in the beginning of the school year, when as library media specialists, we entered the classrooms and began teaching our digital citizenship lessons, it became a forum, and eruptions of confessions were coming from the students, confessing a lot of what is mirrored in the statistics that we saw in the previous slide. Enough so for us to get motivated as a group and reach out to contacts in our professional network and our community network to be able to say, this is something that we need to address at maybe a younger years than Baldwin and Adams Middle School, because we are seeing these trends and these confessions and these experiences that our students, that your children are having, which are they're admitting to being kind of over their head. And they were also saying you can read the screen, but they are also saying that they didn't feel that they could go to anybody because nobody quite understands the gaming, the social media that they interact with in the ways that they do, because they have become, in a sense, masters. Well, we've sent these children out and we've given them these freedoms and we've given them this time, and it's certainly been compounded time in the age of COVID. And have we really prepared them as to be safe and to be smart, to use the acronym that Anthony came to our schools and started teaching our students, and have now become a part of the conversations that we have in the classrooms with classroom teachers and in our digital citizenship lessons. So I think the students were feeling like they needed the help, and I think that they're starting to feel like they can expect those conversations to come home. I know I heard from a lot of parents after Anthony Martone came to our school and the students had gone home and relayed some of their experiences online. You can actually go to the next slide, Kevin, please. Thank you. They've probably read this one. Thank you. So the students had gone home and kind of shared with you their experiences. And that to me was an amazing first step, because when we encourage that conversation to happen and that awareness, we're raising the awareness, but we're also normalizing the conversations that students can have, their children can have within the household, and the limits that I think that they want to be set, and the conversations and the controls that I think that they would feel more safe and secure knowing they were there. And for Anthony to tell me tonight that after his meeting with our students back in February and then going to LEAT shortly thereafter, and having students report that they have since blocked the chat features and the popular games that they're playing like Roblox, and becoming more savvy in what their controls that they can take on themselves. It makes me feel really good that we're progressing towards a safer future and present for them. So next slide, please, Kevin. The Guilford Public Schools and digital citizenship. We use two curriculum-based platforms that we teach our lessons from. We use Common Sense Media Curriculum, which, as you can see from the slide, is a progression of standards and skills beginning at the kindergarten level. And the lessons focus on a person's digital footprint, their media balance, which is really important, cyberbullying, online privacy, and communication, as well as news and media literacy. Common Sense Media for Educators addresses top concerns for schools and prepares students with those critical 21st century learning skills. It also is supportive to educators and also gives a feature of, I use it with the 3rd grade at A.W. Cox, the Digital Citizen Passport, where they can take the lessons that are taught to them in the Common Sense curriculum and then do a gaming platform. And as they're gaming on the Common Sense Media application, they are also making real-time decisions that kind of assess whether they're keeping themselves safe and responsible online, and they can earn that digital citizen passport. So maybe some of your parents have seen your students come home with a signed passport from me that certifies that we have gone through that information and that content together. Another curriculum that I like to use with our 4th graders is the Google's Be Internet Awesome, and that's in partnership with I Keep Safe. It has the International Society of Technology and Education, or the ISTE, ITSE. Oh, we can go to the next slide, Kevin, sorry. Seal of Alignment. And it follows the core tenets above, the colored core tenets. SMART is to thoughtfully consider what to share and with whom, understand the consequences that go along with sharing, and keep extra sensitive the information to yourself. Alert is know how to tell the difference between what is real and what is fake, which is huge for even adults. Understand phishing and how to report it, and understand what the signs are of a potential scam. And kids are pretty savvy about that. Strong stands for taking responsibility and protecting your important information and crafting that unique and memorable password, as Anthony showed in his slide. And it should combine those characters and numbers and symbols. And so we kind of try and teach kids how to get good at crafting those passwords and being able to remember them too. Kind is using the amplifying power of the internet to spread positivity and kindness, blocking mean-spirited or inappropriate behavior, and to speak up against bullying and report it every time. I think that they would start to feel safer themselves in the digital world that they interact with if they knew that everybody was acting more kind. Because as Anthony was saying, would you do it in person? Then you shouldn't be doing it online. And sometimes that divide gives some people that power or license to act in ways they normally wouldn't face to face. And brave, the final one, brave, is to speak up when you notice inappropriate behavior. Stand up when you see something that you're not comfortable with, and report it when you witness people being treated poorly online. So the Be Internet Awesome curriculum gives educators us the tools and methods to teach digital safety and digital citizenship fundamentals in the classroom. And the lessons are also, as Common Sense Media are, they are also fortified by gaming platforms called Interland. So your kids are playing some games, making some real-time choices, and it's educational in nature. And it's all to promote kind and respectful behavior and interactions with others. And we hope that along with the digital citizenship curriculum that we are teaching in our schools, that with the partnership that we're hoping to be making tonight with this presentation with you, that we can encourage our kids to be safe and promote safe and digital citizenships practices throughout all of our time spent online, because they are certainly engrossed in a very digital world. So it's important for all of us to just be on board. And I think that's it for me for now. I'm going to pass it off to Carolyn Regan of Guilford Youth and Family Services.
Thank you, Susie.
You're welcome.
Okay, so some additional statistics. 20% of children wouldn't tell their parents about an online negative experience for fear of being disciplined. And only 25% of youth who have received a sexual solicitation online have told their parents for fear of being disciplined, parental overreaction, or online privileges, devices being taken away for something that is not their fault. So communication is key. Next slide, Kevin, please. Thanks. One of the best things that you can do for your relationship with your child is to keep the lines of communication open. Kids need to know that they can turn to parents if something goes wrong online or something just doesn't feel right. You want to establish that connection early when you're introducing them to social media. Develop a relationship where they know they won't get into trouble or have their device immediately taken away because someone approached them or someone bullied them online. If kids think that they're going to get in trouble or lose their computers or phones, they may be hesitant to share what is happening. So trust between you and your child helps them to stay safe online. You want to have calm, open conversations about internet use. It can help your child feel like you trust them to be responsible online. If your kids feel like they're trusted, they're going to be more likely to talk with you about what they're doing online and tell you if something's worrying them. So while at the end of the day, of course, you guys as parents are the ones in charge, trust, collaboration, and communication is key. Next slide, Kevin, please. So some great ways to build trust and open communication is to develop a family media contract so everyone knows what to expect. You also want to teach them how to make smart choices when you're not there to guide them every step of the way, just as you would in any other situation in their lives. You want to model appropriate use of the internet, learn about ratings, have your children use a kid-friendly search engine, look at reviews at Common Sense Media, and set up parental controls for privacy settings and effective monitoring of their activity. Next slide, please. So here's a sample of the family media contract. You can, as parents, can look through this. You can make your own, but this is just to be used as a guide to start the conversation and set up structure and boundaries for use. There's a great family agreement in our resources page that we're providing for you to help you get the conversation started with questions like, what do you enjoy doing online? What apps and games and websites do you like to use the most? And how does it feel when we use technology for too long? So these are all conversations that you can use to develop your family media contract. Kids will more likely follow rules that they help establish. So working on this together, including consequences, is a great way to do that. You want to establish logical consequences, not punishment related to behavior. So examples would be like having a conversation about a topic to learn more information, having your child write an essay or do a drawing to learn more about a topic, and lastly, phone restriction if necessary. Kids will make mistakes and they will want to do better. So we want to give them an opportunity to do so safely. At the bottom of the family media contract, I think on the next slide, Kevin, there's a space for your kids to list 5 adults that they can talk to if they're having a problem. And this is important to help keep them safe online, but it's also important for other issues that come up in their lives. So the more adults that kids can turn to, the more safeguards your child will have in place. So you want to encourage them in their efforts in developing those trusted relationships. And then I'm going to turn it over to Angelina, I believe.
All right, thank you. So just piggybacking on what Carolyn said, building trust. We are going to be in the resources we send out to you, send you some conversation starters, examples of that contract that Carolyn showed you. But so what is the idea of trust? And also, we talked about monitoring. So how can you effectively monitor your children without being overbearing while also building trust, teaching responsibility, and communicating? These are all very important intertwined things, and it's hard to find that balance. So we're going to talk about ways to do that. So, like everyone was saying before, have conversations about internet safety, but have them often. So if it's great, they're having this in school, they go home, you talk about it, that's great. Okay, is that the one and only time you're ever going to talk about internet safety with them? Because that's not going to be effective forever. Repetition reinforces the things that they're learning that will keep them safe, but also their needs online and the dangers that they face and the things that they're exposed to, they evolve, they change as they grow up. And so you need to, just keep going over it and see what, they're facing that's different so that you can, keep those lines of communication open. So, like they were saying before, learn and use parental controls. And this is, especially more for when they're younger, but give them tools when they, as they're growing, so that they can be safely independent, when they grow up and become young adults. Talk through various scenarios so that they know what to do before it happens. In this internet age, it's almost not a matter of if, but when. So if you haven't had that conversation with them about what happens when a stranger, says something that makes me uncomfortable online, or, what happens, when one of my friends is bullying me online, or, something like that, they won't know what to do if they haven't had that conversation with you. But if you have these regular conversations with them, they already have that framework. They know what to do. And, like Carolyn said before, sign the internet contract with them, and, let them know it's okay to come to you if they have concerns. Next slide. Oh, can we go to our next slide? Okay, so I'm not going to read this whole thing, but monitoring versus snooping, the same activity can be one or the other based pretty much on expectations. So that's why communication is really important to happen, frequently. So if your child doesn't know that you're going to be monitoring their activity, or if they have an unrealistic expectation of 100% privacy, then when you do come in the room and you see what they're doing, or, you do get, copies of their chats sent to your device, or, you do find something that they've been doing online, they're going to be upset with you for snooping, when really it's your right as a parent to know what they're doing. But you can do that without breaking their trust by having these conversations beforehand. So, the monitoring is known, it's expected. You have, boundaries and privacies that are agreed upon ahead of time. There's a balance between safety and independence. So when they're younger, they're going to need a lot more, safety and monitoring. And as they get older, you want to give them the tools so that they can be safely independent, but you still have the responsibility to be, monitoring them, maybe not 100% as actively as when they were younger, but them just knowing that that is there. So lots of great ideas were talked about before. So one great one is only using phone or games or computer in a common area. So your living room, your kitchen, whatever. So, no phones alone in the rooms, no video games or whatever when they're by themselves. Because even if you're not actively looking at their screen, just having an adult present will often curb any of the kind of behaviors that they might get into otherwise, because you're a presence. Shared passwords and accounts with family members. So if your kid has one of those social media accounts that Officer Martone was talking about, TikTok, whatever, you need to have access to that password. That's not optional. And they need to expect that. Consume the media together, learn those games, or, if it's a show or something,
Okay, it seems as though Angelina is having some connection issues. So until we hear her again, I will pop on to build off of what she was saying. Oh, there, wait. Maybe she's coming back. I'm sorry for this. Thank you for your patience.
That's okay. All right, can you all hear me now?
Here she is, yes.
Okay, all right. So getting back to defining appropriate content for each child. This is
Looks like we lost her again, Sue.
Okay. So looking at your ratings and understanding, as Anthony was saying, about the game ratings and the minimum age requirements, and if you're making a decision as a parent to let your child play the games or have the apps or have the experiences with the apps that you're allowing for them to have, please understand that they could be interacting with people and content that is more mature than what they're maybe able to handle. And I think that that was what a lot of the reflection I was getting in the lessons that I was teaching at A.W. Cox School, with the eruption of confessions of the experiences that our students were having in third and fourth grades. So being just aware and continuing that conversation, and the media balance and the parental controls and the expectation that, as Anthony was talking, being the student resource officer, and the issue that the teen was having and the father taking away the video games, you know, the gaming is a privilege and it's not supposed to occupy the majority of your time. And when you see these kids, it could just be that you're seeing that their life is out of balance. And I've applauded parents that I have heard saying, I've noticed their lives being out of balance. The sunny day, and I see them in front of the computer gaming when they've just had online classes all day. And so I said, that's enough. And so just having those conversations and then modeling that as well is really very important, because I think that in this digital world, we are all tied to our devices. And so modeling the different ways and keeping your kids safe and aware of the time that they spend online. Okay, Angelina, are you back?
I think so. Can you all see and hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So thank you for taking over for that. I'm not sure what happened there. But anyway, so just to say, you know, what Susie was saying. So it's not just the games themselves that have a rating. It's what, you know, everyone was saying before about the comments and the, you know, the other players and all of these social interactions. Those are not rated. So you can be playing, you know, the most innocent game ever, but if there's a social aspect to it, and then someone is saying something, you know, that's inappropriate, you know, that's you can't always, you know, judge everything by its rating. You have to, that's why being there with your kids is important. And you know, that's really what I wanted to get into. Just really quick, back to the privacy thing. You know, if you imagine when you were a child or a teenager, if you had a diary, and how you might feel if someone, you know, if your parents snooped in it to find stuff out. And the digital equivalent of that, like what is the digital equivalent of that? Social media. So they're posting these things online, sometimes very personal things that they don't expect you as their parent to see. And so that's why the lines of communication are always important, to be open so that they know they can talk to you about that. All right, so we can go to the next slide. So this is just some popular games that your kids are probably playing and what their ratings are and what they mean. So those ratings, like we said before, is just for the content of the game. So the game itself, it rates how violent, how sexually explicit, you know, language, all of that stuff. That's the game itself. But you can be playing a game that's E for everyone and have someone, you know, saying some horrible things. And that's especially true if they're on Twitch or YouTube streaming with the gaming, because it records the player as they're talking through what they're doing on their gaming screen. And, you know, that interaction isn't rated. So, you know, and a lot of these streaming services, they don't really limit what games they're streaming. So, you know, that's just another thing to look out for. So, you know, basically, the ratings are important, but so is monitoring the social interactions, because, you know, comments and commentary, social interactions, those can be anywhere on the rating scale. All right, so I'm going to then turn this over to Cheryl.
Hi there. So as parents and teachers, we all want what's best for our children. We want them to be happy. We want them to be healthy. Just like we teach them to eat a balanced diet and get enough exercise, we need to teach them a healthy balance of screen time and digital usage. So we already know that our young children are using apps and games like TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, like people have mentioned before me. And we know it's going to continue. The internet's not going anywhere. The key is that we need to teach our children how to use these tools and apps safely, appropriately, and in moderation. So research shows us hard evidence that too much time on devices causes problems. And as you can see on the screen, there are just a few statistics that I wanted to go over. So the first one is that children or young people who spend 7 hours or more a day on screens are more than twice as likely to be diagnosed with depression or anxiety than those that use screens for an hour a day. 7 hours sounds like a lot, but it's happening. It's happening at a younger and younger age. So obviously, we don't want that to happen to our children. Second one, students who trimmed their use of just social media down to 30 minutes a day experience significant improvements in well-being. And finally, kids who spend more time on screens tend to be less happy than kids who engage in non-screen activities. So sports, seeing their friends face to face, even reading a regular print book. Next screen, please. So what I've learned through all this research preparing for this too, and as we can probably all guess, screens are addicting, just like drugs, alcohol, and gambling. We don't want our young students to be hooked on screen use. We want them to use it in a very appropriate way in moderation. So how is this happening? People like to post pictures. They love to get likes. Kids, when Anthony was here talking to our students, were talking about how many likes they have for the videos they post, and they want to get as many as possible. It's almost like a competition. It feels good to get these likes. But there's a dark side to the internet. We all know that. The negative comments, the dislikes, maybe not getting enough attention, comparing themselves to others, which really increases insecurity. So we don't want our young children getting into this type of behavior at a young age because it can only spiral out of control as they get older. So we know that companies want to keep us on their devices as long as possible. They actually develop their products purposely to keep us interested. So we have to be careful with how much time we allow our children to have on devices. We don't want them to be hooked, and we obviously don't want their relationships and their health to be damaged. So what can we do at this point as parents? Here are a couple of things. As you can see, this is from ages 8 to 10. 6 hours a day, children are spending on average on entertainment media. So it's not even with schoolwork. That's a lot of time. So a couple of things you can do right now. You can ensure that your kids have at least 1 hour of physical activity per day. Limit the total screen time per day to maybe 1 to 2 hours. A big one that I know was mentioned earlier by some of my colleagues is to remove TV sets, cell phones, and tablets from your child's bedroom. Keep them in a main space so that you can monitor how much time they're spending. And of course, encourage other physical activity. The other thing is that we do, again, want to be good digital role models. So we might have to look at our own use as parents, as educators, as just adults. You know, maybe we're hooked. Maybe we're that person who has our phone at the dinner table. Maybe we have to keep looking at it every few minutes. If we're doing that and our children are seeing it, then they might obviously follow in that behavior. So that's another reason why the family media contract is a great idea. Next slide, please. Everybody can be involved in that family media contract. So this brings me to the resource list. And I know my colleagues have mentioned it. We will be putting together, or we have put together, a resource list for you. It has articles and websites that go into all of these topics, conversation starters to open up those lines of communications, the sample family media contract that Carolyn talked about. It has videos and TED Talks that goes into perhaps some of the statistics and things that people are seeing now, even in millennials, on down to our younger students. So we encourage you to put aside some time to go through these resources. We do know that everyone is busy, but we obviously also know this is really important. So as a final thought for my slides, there's a quote by Benjamin Franklin. It's very short. It says, "An investment in knowledge pays the best interest." Let's invest in this. Let's invest in this knowledge for the benefit of our children. All right, and I will now pass it along to Kevin for the final leg of our presentation before we open it up to questions.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm going to be quick. A lot of my material is going to be recap because I get to go last. But I'm going to wait for my slide to catch up here. All right. I have to control my own slides here, so I'm messing these up. But anyway, most of mine is a recap. And what I wanted to do is go over a little bit about what I do in my home to keep my children safe, and a little bit about what we do at the school to keep your students safe on our machines. So I know that we've talked about it a lot, but in even the tech director's home, a lot of the stuff is low tech. We are a big proponent of keeping all the computing in family spaces. And though we didn't do a media contract, because I wasn't aware of it at the time, it's a great idea, and I do see that coming in. Again, the same ideas that have come up over and over again here. Play the games with your kids, be there when they're computing, talk about what they see online. Now, if you want to get into the technical sides, there's plenty of ways to do filtering, monitoring, etc. What I do in my home is I actually keep it pretty simple, and because I don't want to get into another system and do more monitoring and log searching all day when I get home, I use a simple filter on the DNS. So DNS is what allows a computer to find where it's going, very similar to a phone book. And hopefully everyone here can get that analogy, because I don't know how long that will be around. But you go to the phone book with a name, something we understand, and it turns it into a number. That's what DNS does for you. So on this slide here, this is the service that I use. I control it. It's something you can set up on any router in any home. And basically the gist of it is this phone book doesn't have bad phone numbers. So when you search the internet, if it does find the computer headed to a bad location, it just doesn't get there because it doesn't give it the directions. So that's one of the ways we just keep it simple. I do that on top of computing in the common spaces in my home. And I also have the luxury of, my wife is also a media specialist and is deep into this material and teaching as well. Some ideas and part of the material that we will provide is going to deal with the filtering options that may be offered by your ISP, which is your internet service provider, most likely Comcast or Frontier. There's also a lot of controls that are specific to the operating system. And this is where it gets really tedious if you want to do different devices. One product mentioned earlier by Officer Martone was the Life 360, and that is a paid product, but it's intense. It does a lot of monitoring. It's something I'd recommend definitely when you get to older kids. I have not had to use that in my own home. And then I've got a few slides here that just show, and this will be part of the material we pass out. It's got the links to how to set up for different ISPs. I've got links for different operating systems. Each different one has built-in controls, including the Xbox. And then finally, at Guilford Public Schools, we do provide student use computers. These do go home. And what we do is we use a paid service to prevent, to filter the internet on these devices. That filtering is in place at all times. We do currently have a program that we're using called Bloxy, and it does allow the parents to have a little bit of access and control a little bit more of that computer after hours for our students. So they have the ability to go in, you guys on these devices, if your student brings them home, can block additional websites after school hours, and also even terminate the use of the device. And I'd like to thank you for your time, and we're going to move on to the question and answer session. Back out of the presentation here.
So far I'm seeing one question coming in. Please feel free to enter more into the Q&A. But this first question to start us off is wondering about the specific, if there is one, specific elementary school policy on any smart devices with students in school. Maybe smart watches that they can access apps while they're in school.
You want me to take that, Kevin?
Sure, I'm trying to do a little control here, but I'm going to read that question and I'll be right here.
All right. So first, I want to thank all of our presenters that were with us tonight for all the great information that they shared. I know that this kind of was born out of conversations that we've had at the building level with concerns that kids are sharing with us during these internet safety presentations that take place, either by our library media specialist or Officer Martone. And they are real situations that these kids are experiencing. So really important to really think about and be mindful and thoughtful of the steps that you can take at home to be just more aware of their internet and social media activities. But as far as the question, there is not a specific elementary policy. There's a Board of Education district policy. The number is 5128. If you think that I know those off the top of my head, I do not. I have a policy manual right in front of me. But it's the student use of personal communication devices. And the most important thing is that they are not restricted at school, but they need to be used if a student has their own personal communications device. It must be used for school-approved purposes by a staff member. I think the other important thing in there is that the Guilford Board of Education is not responsible for damage or stolen or lost devices if they're bringing them in. They're their own personal devices. And I have dealt with that in the past where someone brings in their own iPad or their own phone or something like that. So there is a policy about that. We certainly try our best to supervise a student. So students, yes, they have smartwatches. It's getting more and more difficult because it can be a challenge to monitor throughout the school day, but it should be only being used for school-approved purposes while at school.
Right. We also have another question that came in. A parent would like to know if Bloxy is being replaced with another service and other controls.
Yeah, I am currently looking at alternatives to Bloxy. We did not have a great year as far as that product staying online. We also, it is very expensive compared to the competitors. So what happened is we got into the Chromebook game fairly early, and we needed to, be CIPA compliant, which is protecting the students from that, the poor parts of the internet with the filtering. So we went into it was the best option at the time, but we're feeling that we can move on and get something that's equivalent with the same options at a much reduced price. We will also offer, and I feel for that parent, and I think they're probably thinking the same things I am. It's going to be tough to change. My biggest problem moving that product is the parent users, and we have a significant number of parent users that rely on that product to monitor what's going on. But the other product will be in line and hopefully easier to use, and we will do a lot of PD, probably something very similar to what we're doing here tonight, to get people up and rolling on that.
So another question, this is coming from a family that has children of various ages in more than one school in our district. Curious if there's a central office or person that parents can turn to for assistance to monitor and place limits on the kids' GPS issued and personal devices.
Okay, it's an interesting one. The personal devices, I only have control over the network that they go on to. And typically, we don't allow a lot of personal devices on the main network. There is a guest network. It's greatly reduced in speed and access that they do get on. If you did have a question or need assistance with placing restrictions or information on Bloxy, on each of the school websites, on the home page on the top right, there's a link for tech support. And if you submit your case there, one of my techs will get back to you and help you out and get you to the right person.
Right, are there more questions? We have obviously lots of resources here for you. Officer Martone is here to answer any questions, obviously, on the police side of things. So we encourage anyone else, if you have questions, to type them in the Q&A.
While we wait for maybe further questions, just someone I wanted the group to know reached out with a compliment for the thought-provoking and helpful seminar, appreciating that our attention on this. So I thought I would share that with the group too.
Thank you.
Oh, and here's another one. In terms of the Chromebooks that kids use from school, are search engines like Google restricted at all? And can they access other social media sites while at school?
Mostly no, because like we heard from Anthony earlier, the bane of my day is usually a TikTok or a Facebook or something like that. What was the other half? The Google should be set to safe search all the time. That's a policy that we force from our side. If you did find an instance where you're not seeing that, definitely go and submit a tech support ticket.
We also have a question for Officer Martone. They want to know, how often do you go in to talk to the kids at the schools about internet safety? Oh, you're muted. We can't hear you.
No, okay.
There we go.
There you go.
All right. Sorry about that. It's a great question. The answer truly is not enough. I do have to thank all the school personnel who did reach out, and it's one of the first times in my 3 years that the elementary schools have reached out and said, could you come and talk to the kids? And not only was it, hopefully eye-opening for some of the kids, but it was great for me. That's one of my favorite kinds of days, when I get to go down to the elementary schools and talk to the kids about such an important topic. The reality is the high school keeps me so busy. That's where I spend most of my time. I do have an office at the high school, and I spend 90% of my day there. Today was an Adams Middle School day. I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, but any parents watching from Melissa Jones and Lakes, I am going to get there. I will have another officer joining me for that presentation. So that'll be in the next few weeks. It will happen before school is over. I do apologize that your kids didn't get that presentation before this, but and one thing that we try to do with all the library media techs is gear it towards what kind of issues are happening at each school. So I know in between the Cox presentation and the elite presentation, Cheryl wanted me to just touch on a few other subjects. So that's something that we could totally modify and gear towards whatever issues they're having at the school. So to answer your question, again, not enough. I wish I could get there more, but we'll try to call it once a year.
We have another a plea for suggestion on if you're moving from being a lax family and having that approach to more monitored. The kids they're reporting are feeling like they're now punishing them versus trying to make them safe and healthy. They report they're trying to have discussions, but for every study they reference, they seem to find a counter study. So any advice for that?
Yeah, I think it's just sticking with it and having an ongoing conversation with them and trying to sort of collaborate on that. And I think the family agreement that we have and the resource guide will help you do that, because it'll be more conversations. Things like we had mentioned, how will we know when we're on social media too long? What apps do we really want to use? And it's okay to say, look, we know that, we were pretty lax before, but we find that this is important. And that's why we're having the conversation now about it. But again, to do it in a collaborative way.
And I just wanted to add on to that, any kind of change is going to take adjusting. And, like Carol said, just stick with it. And, if they're finding a counter study, that's a great time for you to look into, that SMART acronym about where is that study coming from? Is it reliable? Because, I can Google literally any question and find an answer that is opposite from another answer. And so, a kid, of course, is going to find, some one cherry-picked study that says social media makes you happier. And, they're going to find a study that says, having lots of, online friends is perfectly safe. Like they're going to find the studies that support their point of view. That's called confirmation bias. So, they're going to find what they're looking for. And it's your job as a parent to help them sift between that and more reliable information. So like in Officer Martone's slides, he had the works cited, where they came from. In the resources that we're going to email out to you, like these are very reliable places that we're getting these statistics from. And it's also very important to keep reiterating the why. I'm not saying you want to scare them, but showing them examples of why you're doing what you're doing and how it's keeping them safe, not just trying to restrict them.
And I feel like a lot of younger students don't necessarily realize how dangerous some things can be. So again, having that open line of communication, and again, you don't really want to scare them, but in a way you almost want to scare them enough to trust that what you're telling them is the right thing and that it really is to keep them safe. Bad things are happening, unfortunately, and we don't want that to be our children experiencing those things.
I think also now that the weather's getting warmer and COVID restrictions are lessening, and we're finding that our lives are much different than they were, last May 2020, we can also reevaluate the way that we spend our time, and certainly reevaluate the way we spend our time as a family. And if you're going to be putting on limitations or restrictions, perhaps to balance that, you say we're going to take on a family project or a family hobby, or Tuesday nights is going to be hike night, or whatever you're going to do. I know it's very busy. Parents are extremely busy now, and a way of students spending their time because of busy family life is often turned onto the device. So it's warmer out now. Perhaps you're looking at things differently, because we can look at things differently, the way we spend our time. So I just recommend reevaluating that and saying that it's coming from a point of reevaluation. That's all.
All right, we do have another question, a great one. I haven't heard of this before, but would GPS consider apps for younger kids learning online etiquette? So especially when they're learning to write and they don't know that what they say might sound mean. So an example is if a text doesn't sound kind, that the app would basically pop up and say, are you sure you want to say that? So it seems important for first to third graders, and apparently a great one was recommended by SEPTO during Upstanders. So we could certainly look into it. I haven't heard of this before. So if anyone can speak to whether or not maybe GPS would consider this app for younger kids learning etiquette, that would be great.
You're muted, Kevin.
Yeah, I have looked into apps similar to this. It's definitely becoming a lot more popular. A lot of the apps are actually trying to read into a lot of the things that the kids say to anticipate maybe problem areas or directions they may be going in. I think suicide is one of those things that they try to pick out of any line a kid may write and then respond back. This is definitely a much nicer use than that example. But again, a lot of the, I would have to defer to Aneen, who drives our curriculum, so we always try to, allow that curriculum and what happens in the classroom to drive the technology. So if they came to us and needed a tool like that, we would definitely evaluate it.
So at this time, I'm not seeing any further questions. If anyone has any last minute thoughts.
Oh, one just popped in.
There we go. Officer Martone, this one is specifically for you. It's great you're at the high school. Do you feel that high school students are comfortable enough to come to you with potential issues? I think the rest is kind of a compliment about myself and my colleagues taking on the curriculum or the learning of internet safety, and that the kids are comfortable enough and safe enough to come to us as they have done this year.
Yeah, again, that's a great question, and I thank you for asking. Two great questions from you. Yeah, I have a lot of kids that come to me, and when I go to the elementary schools, I do bring up issues that happen at the high school level. But I have a lot of kids come to me with internet issues. A lot of times they know the answer, but they want guidance, and I'm happy to help solve if any way I can. I like to use other examples from not necessarily school, but sometimes when I'm out on patrol, I deal with internet issues, whether it's a kid or an adult. So, I do have a number of kids that come to me with things that are going on, whether it be relationship stuff, mistakes they know they made, and it's out there for the world to see. I deal with so many different things regarding the issue of social media and so on and so forth, but it's a daily thing. It really is. So I do feel that the kids like to come to me for that sort of thing, and sometimes I know they might be hesitant to go to an administrator for certain things just because they think they might get in trouble. And I'm not there to get kids in trouble. I think they know that, especially at the high school. They can bounce an idea off me, and it's not going to necessarily affect what happens to them at school. So that's another plus to me being in the school and working with the kids. Just a different perspective for them.
All right, so
Just wrap up after. Oh, I'm
this
sorry.
wasn't a
Lena, go
question,
ahead.
but I just wanted to say one quick thing about the Guilford Free Library. So obviously because of COVID, we're, not completely open, but in pre-COVID times, some of your kids you may have dropped off at the library after school, or they took a bus there, or they, went there with friends, on the weekend, whatever, and that's great. However, when their kids are in school, the school acts in loco parentis. That's the legal term. They are responsible for your children. When you drop them off at the library, we are not responsible for your children. So, all of these filtering things, they are on their school devices. They're not on library devices. If they have their personal devices at the library isn't, blocking them with the VPNs and the DNS and all of that. So that is the other reason why the conversations and giving them the tools to understand how to be safe when you're not around is important. Because it won't be long now before, things do go back to normal. And, we do have 20 kids hanging out in the library after school playing Roblox for, 3 hours, which is fine. But, the kinds of things that we would be dealing with there, it's that, like that first picture that Officer Martone showed of the kids screaming at the, video game, and, the sort of bullying in things that happen, they also happen in person through online when they're next to each other. So, I mean, those are things that, we are, addressing on a case-by-case basis. And, I'm very happy to be part of this conversation to help bring those kinds of behaviors to light, in school, at home, and elsewhere. But just, you don't know what you don't know if your kids aren't talking to you. And, some of the things pre-COVID that I was running into, a lot of parents would be surprised, when I had to call them about the things that they were saying to other children. And, some of the things that they would come to me about that were happening, and I was, helping them block the kids that were giving them mean comments and things like that, like on a case-by-case basis. But those were just the kids who were comfortable enough to come to me at the library. Not every kid is going to feel that way because, they're there to socialize with each other. They're not there to socialize with me. So, that's why that whole trusted adult thing at the end of the contract is really important. You can help decide who those trusted adults are, and, you can make suggestions. I'm not saying I need to be on there, but, if you think of all the places that your kids go after school, it could be your friends, their friends' parents. It doesn't always have to be you. So just another thing to consider.
I would like to give parents some hope. I'm the father of 3 daughters, young women all in their 20s now. And my wife and I were probably the mean parents. Our girls didn't get their phones until they were in high school, probably at least a year or 2 after their friends. Our daughters didn't have TVs in their bedrooms. I'm not going to say that it was easy and that they didn't complain about it. But I have a very healthy, positive relationship with my 3 daughters now. And so I think you have to just try to stick to your principles. And I would encourage you to try something out. If there's a TV in a bedroom, if there's a computer in the bedroom, remove it for a couple weeks and see if that changes things. Move it to a common area in the household, and then just set some limits. And summertime can often be a good time to do that because there's other activities that they can be doing. But you may notice a difference in behavior and your conversations and your ability to, if you have the opportunity at the dinner table to have a conversation, not have everybody staring at devices, you may notice a difference with that. But I ask you to just have some hope and believe that you're doing everything you can. The most important job of a parent is to keep their kids safe. So I encourage you all to contact any of us if you have questions. Happy to help out and work with you to ensure the safety of all our kids.
Thank you everyone for coming. And, like Bill and everyone else said, feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any questions, and, take a look at those resources that we'll be sending your way.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.